Microfinance is the supply of loans, savings and other basic financial services to the poor. People living in poverty, like everyone else, need a diverse range of financial instruments to run their businesses, build assets, stabilize consumption and shield themselves against risks. Financial services needed by the poor include working capital loans, consumer credit, savings, pensions, insurance and money transfer services.
The Netherlands platform for microfinance is a combination of all important organizations in the Netherlands who are active in microfinance, and it combines NGOs, banks and others who are involved in microfinance.
If a micro-entrepreneur needs a loan, he goes to a microfinance institution that provides this service. The loan officer assesses the farmer's needs and payment capacity and then may grant him a loan. The microfinance institution itself is often supported by donor organizations and social or commercial investors. A large number of the microfinance institutions have been set up with support of donor organizations that provided them with grants to purchase computers or hire a consultant to draft a good business plan. Once such an institution grows and becomes operationally and financially sustainable, it needs additional capital, amongst other things, to provide even more people with financial services. These funds, that are either in the form of equity or loans, are often provided by social or commercial investors.
The Netherlands platform for microfinance is initiated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because he wanted that the organizations involved in microfinance in the Netherlands will coordinate their efforts and talk over the common policies towards microfinance.
The Ministry is very happy with the Netherlands platform for microfinance, and I think we are relatively unique in the world in that we are bringing all together all these relevant players in the area of microfinance, and that is also helpful in our discussions with other parties abroad.
In the Netherlands, both donor organizations and investors are joined together in the Netherlands platform for microfinance. Each of the member organizations have different missions and different means that are required in different development stages of the process of a microfinance institution becoming an independent, and therefore many of our efforts are complementary.
Microfinance has grown the last years for a lot. And that means that hundreds of millions of people, of poor people, are being helped by microfinance, but it also brings its own dilemmas. And NPM, and not only NPM, but the whole world in microfinance is working on that dilemma to tackle them and to get the best financial products for the poor people.
The vision for what microfinance could and should be was about improving the lives of the poor. Most of what we do should still be doing that. We're working up the systems to both validate that and make sure that we really are having impact, and which of us are having more impact than others. And that's a challenge, but it's an exciting, it's an important goal to say, you're not just sustainable, the double bottom line now becomes that's precarious balance. You're a good business, but are you still helping the poor? Are you helping the poor too much and not sustainable, or are you being too sustainable and not helping the poor? How to balance that out is an art.
It's a complicated thing, so there are always dilemmas and trade-offs. And that is never a reason not to do something. So you have to choose your position and you have to find ways to mitigate negative aspects and to promote what you are after, so to say. So that is more a matter of keeping in touch with what is happening in the field and getting feedback from what works and what does not work, and use that in better designing your programs.
A business loan, a micro business loan is very good. The first step was, well, a housing loan. Okay, that's pretty good. Education loan, that's pretty good. The first decisions were around the idea of, is there social benefit? Okay. Now, I mean, there's some small percentage, it depends on the country, consumer loans. Okay. So we're loaning money to people to buy a refrigerator. Okay, well, that maybe has some benefits. Arguable, they're going somewhere to borrow the money for a refrigerator. Why not us? So microfinance has somewhat blurred, gotten evolved, not doing exactly what we did before. That's not to say it's bad or worse or negative. It's more complicated.
As the microfinance sector matures and changes, the members of the Netherlands Platform for Microfinance anticipate the changing needs of the sector in order to support the sector in growing towards a responsible industry. Dutch organizations are known pioneers in the field of microfinance, especially in promoting a social approach. They have supported organizations such as Microfinance Transparency to promote transparent pricing and the Social Performance Task Force to make sure that microfinance institutions stay true to their social mission and keep the focus on the client.
The platform that we've created for social performance has actually been built in large part because of the Dutch participation. So both in terms of strengthening the networks, the local networks in countries that have been implementing the standards. The Dutch have been providing the funding to develop the dialogue for what social performance constitutes. And they've also been very involved in our task force in developing the categories of standards that we should promote.
Well, I think the Dutch role is unique around the world because of the way that the Dutch are able to mobilize private individual investments from ordinary people who want to put their money into microfinance and then do that in a socially responsible way. So with Triodos Bank and Oiko Credit and Triple Jump and many others, those kinds of mechanisms don't exist everywhere in the world, and certainly in the United States, I would really love to see the same kind of mechanism available, but it isn't available now. So we'd really like to see other countries copy the Dutch example on this.
Responsible finance is a concept that has really, I think, captured the imagination of the microfinance sector right now and shown us a way to frame where we're trying to get to. I think its essence for the microfinance sector is that providers are taking reasonable steps to make sure that there isn't unintentional harm to clients. And that doesn't mean that a client will never get over-indebted, because that's not really realistic, but it means that reasonable preventive steps are taken.
Social performance management is very important because we've learned over the years that microfinance organizations that have a double and triple bottom line need to pay attention to their social mission, and if they don't manage toward that mission, they will often not accomplish it. We've learned that if you don't sort of measure what you do, then you often do not accomplish it. And so many organizations that have a double bottom line or a triple bottom line have to pay attention to their mission, have to translate that mission into a set of measurable objectives, and then have to manage toward those objectives.
The client protection principles are really important for microfinance because they are the basis for how you treat clients. And really the client protection principles are just about applying the golden rule in finance. They're treat your clients the way you would like to be treated. They actually apply to all financial services, but we wanted to make sure that microfinance, which really has the interests of clients as its founding mission, that the microfinance industry would be a leader in putting these client protection practices into the industry's way of operating. There's 7 principles, but I think the two most important and prominent principles. The first one is protection against over-indebtedness, so not over-lending to clients. And the second one is transparency, especially about pricing.
Transparency leads to accountability. Accountability leads to more tempered behaviors. You think more carefully about your prices. You think more carefully about your compensation levels if those are public information. Public transparency leads to more prudent, cautious, but still business-like behavior. And that's responsible business. That way, everyone can have a beautiful annual report, but which ones are getting rich off the poor and which ones are intentionally setting their return levels at a more moderate level, transparency gives us that answer.
Microfinance isn't about necessarily the business. The ultimate goal of microfinance is about the client. So at the heart of social performance is bringing microfinance back to the client.
The members of the Netherlands Platform for Microfinance are active in around 90 countries. The total amount of funds that they've invested has grown to an amount of around 1.6 billion euros per year. The larger part of these funds are provided in debt to microfinance institutions. The other part of the funds are provided in grants, guarantees and equity.
I think there is a lot to do about the effects of microfinance. Everybody knows the individual successes, of course, but a scientific proved impact, that's hard to do. But I'm convinced, myself, and I think all the people who are working in the sector, that they do good work and that it has its effect and its profit for the poor people.
I do believe that social performance measurement is important, because at the end of the day you want to really know the impact that the access to services has at the individual or household level. But at the same time, we also as donors have to be prepared to build up the institutional framework to be able to track these impact issues properly. Because in terms of microfinance institutions, there are different stages of development. It may not be all that will be able to work with the system, but we have to be committed to build them to a level where they can.
We can see some improvement in some of the people's lives. I don't have evidence today to share with you, but I'm living among those people also. I cannot generalize the impact. They may have some negative impact, but more generally speaking, I think microfinance is making good improvement in people's lives.
Microfinance does work, but the question is, how do we get this information in a way that all the constituents will be able to understand and appreciate.
If I go to the field, I talk to clients that are happy with the insurance, happy with the fact that they can save. Loans is of course a bit a more difficult case, but I still hear a lot of positive stories, and it is for me good enough to continue my work.
I think microfinance contributes to grasp opportunities for the poor to improve their life. It's not automatic, but it provides an opportunity at least to do something.
Well, I believe given that we've seen microfinance work in different countries, I believe that without access to any of the either savings or credit services offered, these women or also even their households would not have a disposable income and also be able to mitigate against some of the risk events in life, being able to attend to funeral costs, attending to ailments in terms of their children, and also even sending them to school. So all those opportunities in terms of quality of life and having basic rights to some of these issues would not have been tenable.
Access to financial services is the backbone of economic development. Without a well-functioning financial system, it is not possible to create good conditions for long-term sustainable economic growth, and with that, economic independency. Financial services are not only used for economic activities, but also to allow people to manage cash flows of households, which allows them to increase their standard of living and make them less vulnerable to unexpected situations. By setting up and supporting microfinance institutions, financial services can be made accessible to everyone.
I guess my vision is that when we look back 5 years from now, we can see that this is a corner of the financial markets that really is considered exemplary in having a long-term view on how consumers need to be treated in the market and how you can have a responsible but quite viable business model.
I see for the future of microfinance that it will develop to a normal financial sector, like the normal financial sector. That means more regulation, more supervising, credit bureaus for example, and involvement of the governments where microfinance is active.
The members of the Netherlands Platform for Microfinance are confident that the efforts within the industry will lead to a responsible sector that, in the future, might even be exemplary for the regular financial sector, in setting the tone for issues like client protection and discussions on the level of profits. especially in a sector that is so dynamic, it is important to join efforts.